But I think I would have, after watching the movie, would have recast T'Challa with another lead actor. Hello, movie friends. Welcome back to the show. James and I just watched Black Panther, Wakanda Forever at IMAX headquarters in Los Angeles. We had a great time. It was an excellent film all around. I think that Ryan Coogler and company did a phenomenal job trying to make sense and trying to craft a story around the passing of Chadwick Boseman. Directed by Ryan Coogler, written by Ryan Coogler and Joe Robert Cole, the people of Wakanda fight to protect their home from intervening world powers as they mourn the death of T'Challa. Right now, as of November 10th, on IMDb, Wakanda Forever is at a 7.4. Rotten Tomatoes, it is an 85% critic score. There is no audience score yet. This is the 30th movie of the MCU, which is crazy to say. There's a couple of big spoilers in this film in terms of like secret castings plus post-credit scenes that we'll wait a little bit to get into. There's a lot to talk about, and I agree, this is a movie that was so up in the air because of the tragic and sudden passing of Chadwick Boseman. What was going to happen with the Black Panther next project, the sequel, with the character going forwards? Were they going to recast T'Challa? Were they going to have a previous Black Panther character take the reins as the new Black Panther? Obviously, everyone kind of knows what's been happening and who the new Black Panther is. If you haven't figured it out already or seen it online, we'll give you the poster. Yeah, we'll give you a few minutes. Yeah. Everyone knows. You can tell who's the largest on the poster. I think they did a really great job paying respects to Chadwick Boseman in terms of not rendering him CGI, not having a body double, not showing his death, not showing his dead body, not doing any
using his voice.
Yeah, not any artificial voice recognition or voice creation. Nothing like that. No CGI rendering, no deep fake. They just didn't showcase Joe Chadwick at all artificially. All they did was pay respect to him really brilliantly, I think, with the opening Marvel logo that was muted with no music. It was actually the most emotional I felt in the theater was when that played at the beginning of the film. And then also a little montage of sequences of Chadwick Boseman as T'Challa towards the end of the film. That was also the second most emotional I was in the film.
Yeah, and they just had wind playing for the Marvel logo, and it was really, really powerful, and it was just a ton of footage of him, and he really was such a great presence, and I mean, he was a superstar, and I think he would have been the face of Marvel going forward, one of the most important figures, and it was such a big loss, but I really like how the way Coogler wrote T'Challa's death in the film actually mirrored Chadwick's death in real life. It was an illness, and in the film they don't explain what the illness is, but Chadwick died from cancer, and so I like how they kind of paralleled it to what really happened to the actor with the character of T'Challa. So I thought that was a good, I didn't want to see people on a ship and then he's they're like, oh, T'Challa's in that area, and then it explodes or something. I didn't want to actually physically see him die or just news of him dying. I think it was smart how they opened the film, Coogler using a really long take, I think it was about 2 minutes long, of Shuri trying to figure out how to cure her dying brother, and then he finally passes away. We don't see his body, or he's in the other room, next room over, we assume, but I think they handled the explanation for T'Challa's passing really well.
And I think it's still up in the air whether people would have preferred a recasting of T'Challa or they're satisfied with this. Personally, as we'll get into it right now, let's just, if you haven't seen the movie yet, maybe not watch the rest of this episode yet, but I'm sure you have.
Yeah, we gave you 4 days.
Obviously, the new Black Panther is Shuri, played by Letitia Wright, who I think did a really great job as the lead in this film, even though it was very much an ensemble cast. By the end of the film, it was finally her movie, and she was finally the lead. I think they did a good job, but I still think after watching it, I like how they did it, paying respects to him, but I think I would have preferred if they recast T'Challa with another lead actor, because for me, T'Challa has become as big and as important as someone like Clark Kent or Bruce Wayne in the world of the MCU especially. So I think that, the character passed away with Chadwick Boseman, which is obviously so tragic, but I think I would have, after watching the movie, would have recast T'Challa with another lead actor instead of go the route with Letitia Wright Shuri becoming Black Panther. But it seems like they kind of got both answers and did both with, at the end of the film, obviously post-credit scene, warning, post-credit scene reveal, where T'Challa and Nakia had a son, a secret Prince T'Challa, who we can only assume in probably like 10 years, once the actors that they select are old enough for the timeline of the MCU, will be the new T'Challa Black Panther. So it seems like they did both. Like they did both things that they wanted to do in terms of recasting T'Challa in the future, as well as having a temporary Black Panther or maybe another permanent second Black Panther with Shuri.
For me, I think it was a good decision to have Letitia Wright take over, but I definitely think it could have worked with a new actor playing the role of T'Challa as if nothing had changed in the MCU. I think it could have played well, and Coogler, being a really nuanced, smart guy, could have pulled it off. I understand why they took the route. I think they just didn't want to replace Chadwick. They didn't want to say, oh, his role and his performance wasn't that important. We can just replace him with another actor. So I suppose that's why they took the route of having T'Challa's sister Shuri take over the mantle of Black Panther. But I think something that would have helped with audiences was if we got a little bit more Black Panther in the film. Black Panther shows up, I think, 2 hours into the movie. We finally get Letitia Wright taking the herb, and she is the new Black Panther. I would have liked to see Black Panther earlier on in the film. Perhaps her journey to becoming the new Black Panther could have happened within the first half of the film, and then she could have gone through turmoil and struggle as the Black Panther, failed, learned from her mistakes, and risen again for a second fight in the third act of the film. That's how I expected the trajectory of the story to go in some capacity. But ultimately, she didn't become Black Panther till the conflict was very much established, and it was the final, basically, confrontation. And I think that there was just not enough Black Panther in this movie.
It was like kind of like the mystery box storytelling where they're waiting to like the third act to reveal the big thing with Shuri being Black Panther. And the thing is, we all knew Shuri was going to be Black Panther. It was just like a matter of when in the film. So I agree. I think if they got to Black Panther sooner in the film, it would have been better for the story and for audiences, because this was a runtime of 161 minutes. That's 2 hours, 41 minutes. It's the second longest film in the MCU behind Avengers Endgame. That was a long-ass movie with a runtime of 181 minutes at 3 hours, 1 minute. And it's the longest solo MCU film, dethroning Eternals, which came out in 2021. So it was a very long watch. Surprisingly, went by quicker than I thought it would. We knew going in it was going to be a really long runtime, but it flowed pretty well. It got a little sluggish here and there. It's almost hard for a movie not to at that runtime, 2 hours and 40 minutes. It's a huge story to tell. But I think if they got, I agree, if they got to Black Panther, Shuri becoming Black Panther a little sooner, maybe halfway through the script, I think it would have been a better story. But I understand they were really focusing on the grief of the characters over the loss of T'Challa, their king, the unknown future of what Wakanda would be going forward with their new leader, with Ramonda becoming queen now, and Shuri trying to she's still going through the grief of not wanting to accept fully the fate of her brother's passing, and the mystery of the Black Panther. Is it gone forever? Because now all the heart-shaped flowers were destroyed with Killmonger, and so he was the last one to take it. She's trying to, again, by the third act of the film, recreate the flower organically in her lab, which is really cool. Like, the technology in this film, I think, was really great, and then become Black Panther herself.
Yeah, and the cast was really remarkable. Every actor did a fantastic job. They all are so talented, and the emotion in the film was really heartfelt. And, I mean, there was not a weak link amongst the cast, and this really was an ensemble. There's a lot of characters with a good amount of screen time. I think Angela Bassett was the MVP of the movie. She's a really incredible, commanding presence on screen. And then whenever she's in a scene, she's dominating that whatever's going on, and she just makes the audience pay attention to her. She's really incredible at her craft. And then Lupita Nyong'o, I think, is one of the most talented actors of her generation. And then when she finally showed up, she was bringing in the emotion, and I think that those two performers are really incredible. I did miss Nakia in the first hour, 15 minutes of the movie, because she didn't show up until about halfway through the film. And so when she finally did show up, I was like, I wish we could have seen a little bit more of her. When she did come in, she was very much a welcome presence for the story. I just think she's such a talented person. It would have been nice to see a little bit more of her for screen time
And some more of the cast, obviously Letitia Wright taking on the reins as the lead by the end of the film, because this was very much, like Anthony said, an ensemble movie, which kind of like all Marvel movies have become ensembles.
And superhero movies in general. Black Adam was an ensemble.
Yeah, it's all like kind of a thing. I kind of miss the world of solo Black Panther movies, solo Man of Steel movies, just solo superhero movies.
Man of Steel will be solo.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
But I kind of miss that. Maybe want it.
We got it with the Batman.
Yeah, okay, the Batman, we got our solo. Yeah. But then we had Okoye, played by Denai Guerrera. She obviously was tremendous in this movie. She's always a reliable actor in the Black Panther MCU films. I always forget that she was also Michonne on The Walking Dead, which is such a great character. Great. She goes through a lot. She's got a huge role in this film where obviously she's the general of the Dora Milaje, but she gets stripped of her rank and spear and power by Ramonda after she allows Shuri to be taken by Namor's people. Nakia, again, we have a new character, Riri Williams, a.k.a. Ironheart, played by Dominique Thorne. Really charming, charismatic new character who's basically kind of like the next sort of Iron Man character, genius, inventor, engineer. Goes through a couple suit developments in this film. We have M'Baku, played by Winston Duke, who I really think we needed a little more of M'Baku. I think his presence was missed for sure in the first half of the film because we don't have Kawabi returning, played by Daniel Kaluuya, because he had scheduling conflicts with Nope, so he was unable to film for Black Panther Wakanda Forever.
And you're going to do the lead in a Jordan Peele movie as opposed to like the 10th on the call sheet of Black Panther.
Exactly. So I think that the film could have used a little more M'Baku because I think he's such a great character. He was just more kind of like comedic relief in this film. He
felt like a dad.
Yeah, didn't have a ton of action sequence. He got beaten pretty early in the first battle. In the final sequence, he had plenty of action, but I think he was a missed presence for sure in the first hour of the film. Absolutely. Everett Ross, played by Martin Freeman, he's back for sure. I wish we got a little more of him as well in terms of I thought he was going to come to Wakanda at some points, but
in terms of involvement in the climax,
But he does have involvement with the plot where he's helping give the Wakandans information about the scientists who developed this new technology that can detect vibranium anywhere in the earth, whether it be land, sea, or even metal, which is really interesting. And then we have, spoiler warning here for another secret casting that was not on the cast list originally, Julia Louis-Dreyfus as Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, who this is the fourth time she's played that character in the MCU. She was in, I think she was...
a bunch of the TV shows.
Yeah, she's in the TV shows. Yeah. She was also most recently she was in Winter Soldier, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. She was in the Scarlet Witch show, right? WandaVision. Was she in WandaVision or no?
WandaVision,
she wasn't.
No.
Or I thought she was at the end, like in a post-credit scene. She's in post-credit scene because her and
Wanda.
yeah.
Sorry, I get the post-credit scenes mixed up.
Scarlet Witch's sister, Yelena, have the post-credit scene at the cemetery.
No, that's Natasha's sister.
What did I say?
Scarlet Witch's sister.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, but you're right.
There's so many characters.
Yelena Belova in her at the end of Black Widow.
Post-credit scene.
Yeah.
So this is her. Which I didn't really love her character in this movie. The lines didn't really land, the comedy, and it seemed so odd that Everett Ross, who's always been like a good guy, why would he marry a person like this? She's so evil.
Yeah, and I think she has a big fan following because there were about 10 or so people who were like clapping when she showed up and laughing at everything she said, and that's great for them. But for me, I didn't really, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who I love, I didn't really feel her character fit what was going on. It felt out of place.
It did. It seemed kind of forced because it's a Marvel movie, so they're trying to infuse so many characters that are connected to so many shows and TV series, like in movies.
But the fans seemed very satisfied.
A good amount, yeah. I would say, like in terms of the film, there were some jokes obviously in the movie because it's an MCU movie, but I think they just focused on the grief and tragedy versus the comedy because not a lot of the jokes were landing in this movie, and we had a full theater. And then we have the new big bad Namor, played by Tenoch Huerta, who got a lot of recognition on Narcos, and he did a tremendous job in this role of Namor. It's a kind of a daunting task this is easily the biggest production he's ever been a part of, to play the main antagonist of this movie alongside so many great actors and actresses. I think he did a great job.
He did a very good job, yeah.
Now, a little backstory on Namor, because I never really heard
You know us being comic book experts.
So I did a little comic background. Now, Actually, real quick fun fact, Tenoch Huerta, who plays Namor, didn't know how to swim when he got cast in this role. And even when Ryan Coogler offered him the role, he asked about his swimming skills. Huerta said, "I've never drowned before." So he ended up taking a lot of swimming lessons afterwards in preparation for this role, because there was a decent amount of underwater filming, you could tell, but it looked, a lot of it was a lot of CGI for sure. Now, Namor, who originally is Namor the Submariner, was one of Marvel's very first superheroes. I believe he made his first appearance in 1939. Comic backstory on Namor: half human and half Atlantean royalty. Namor is proud, quick-tempered, and willing to do anything to protect his kingdom. He's been an Avenger in one of the X-Men, and Namor in the film reveals that he's a mutant. So that's another little tease of them revealing mutants in the MCU connection there. Founding member of the Defenders, and even fought alongside Captain America in World War II against the threat of the Nazis posed to the entire world. He's the ruler of Atlantis and fights with fervor for his people, but Namor isn't a natural do-gooder like Cap. His temper and arrogance make him more of an anti-hero who has no qualms about destroying anything that gets in the way of his goals, which you get a sense of in the film for sure with Namor. He kills 2 innocent deep divers simply for being in his undersea domain. While time has softened his stance on humans, Namor has kept the same hubris throughout the 80-plus years he's been a part of the Marvel Universe. Namor in the film has been around for several centuries, which we'll get into in a little bit. Now, Namor from the comics, son of the Atlantean princess and a human explorer named Leonard Mackenzie. Their story began in 1920 in the waters of the South Pole. The captain's expedition vessel repeatedly blasted the ice above Atlantis, which rocked the city below with explosions that claimed the lives of many Atlanteans. Princess Fen was sent to the humans above to act as a spy. She and the captain fell in love and were married, but Fen didn't forget her mission. While the princess did consider Captain Mackenzie a good man, she never lost her distrust of humanity and blamed them for the destruction of their kingdom. She passed those beliefs to Namor, the avenging son, now in Wakanda forever. To quote the Smithsonian Magazine, Namor has been reimagined as a Mesoamerican historic region spanning modern-day Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, Belize, El Salvador, Nicaragua, and Costa Rica. Mesoamerican indigenous groups include the Mayan, the Olmec, the Aztecs or Mexica, and the Toltec. One of the biggest changes to Namor's MCU story is his kingdom rebranding as Talocan, a name likely derived from Talocan, an Aztec paradise overseen by the rain god Tlaloc. Namor himself has a new look, though Huerta remains the comic book character's signature skimpy shorts, winged ankles, and pointed ears. Costume designer Ruth E. Carter, who won an Academy Award for her work on the first Black Panther film, created a series of intricate feathered headdresses for the Talocan ruler. She said, "We were inspired by all the pageantry that you see in Mesoamerican history. There are these vases that they painted to depict figures and headdresses and all kinds of clothing that I used to inspire the clothing of the Talocan." Loved the costume and wardrobe of this film for sure. Namor's most impressive headdress alludes to a name bestowed upon him by his people. As M'Baku, leader of the Wakandan Jabari tribe, explains the new film's trailer, his people don't call him General King, they call him Kukuklan, the feathered serpent god. Now, to quote someone else on the production, we worked with historians who were experts on Mayan culture to learn about what part of the trajectory of the ancient Mesoamerica area we would draw from, and so we looked to the beautiful sculptures of different scenes depicting the lifestyle of post-classic Yucatan, and the feathered serpent figures were the ones that were the most powerful looking. So why not Atlantis? Why change up the story? I think it was a good decision for the MCU to infuse indigenous cultures and people and representation into the MCU. Director Ryan Coogler frames Atlantis' reinvention as Talocan as a way of offering audiences new perspectives of the lost civilization. So very, very similarly to the resource exploitation metaphors and themes that are in this film with Wakanda and the previous films, same thing is potentially going to happen to Talocan, which happened to Atlantis in the comics.
And it's also a great contrast from the DC that has Atlantis now. We've seen Atlantis established with Aquaman in the DC universe. So I think it was smart to make a new interpretation of the comics for this character in this civilization. And Namor, I think, was a really strong villain. He also established a really big conflict where he wants to be allies with Wakanda, and Shuri, when she's listening to his offer, he also states that he plans on attacking the surface world, all of the surface world. And he apparently has vast numbers of soldiers. His army is massive, and so he can put up like a really incredible fight because these people are also basically super soldiers. They're super strong. They're much stronger than a normal human being. So they're probably worth like a dozen human beings, each one of these soldiers and warriors.
So the plot of this film is actually pretty solid. The theme of exploitation of resources and colonization has been present in a lot of MCU projects, obviously with Black Panther. The first one, then this one especially, where the world's looking at Wakanda and their resource of vibranium. And obviously these massive countries want to get their own fair share of Wakanda that they assume they deserve, and they want to use it and exploit it, but they're using the guise of national security and global security as a means to be able to get inside Wakanda, just like all resources have been exploited for the last several centuries of other countries by the most powerful and elite. And so while that's going on, the politics of that's happening, there's this new technology that was developed by Riri Williams, not on purpose to be used to detect vibranium around the world, but was exploited by her teachers and the CIA, I believe, to find vibranium on their own. It's kind of like a guns race or an arms race for other countries to find vibranium now in the world, which makes a lot of sense because it's so valuable and powerful. Now, this machine is detecting vibranium, which is revealing the fact that there is another superpower secretly living in the world on Earth underwater that has access to vibranium and whose culture is based in powered basically by vibranium, different ways than Wakanda, which is really interesting to find out. It's also interesting that the power of the Black Panther was similarly used to give these people their power, which turned Namor into the most powerful of them all because he was in his mother's womb while these indigenous people took this secret herb that they discovered to try to fight back against colonizers, and they ended up taking it. They became water dependent.
And to save themselves from the smallpox they were dying
smallpox
of.
Smallpox, you're right. So they took it to try to save themselves. It turned them into these new types of being that were water dependent, but also gave them superhuman strength and abilities. And they've developed this culture for the last several hundred years, since it was the 16th century, I believe, that Shuri dates the bracelet and the necklace around Namor in his underground kingdom. And so he's survived this long, but you can assume that he's the only one that has kind of eternal life, and he's kind of a god.
Yeah, I think it was smart how they did it because he was conceived as a human, but then the herb, it combined both species basically of this new human hybrid. He basically is a hybrid of both beings.
He's like Blade.
Yeah, exactly. He's a daywalker.
So he can breathe the air, but also absorbs water through his skin like a jellyfish.
And he doesn't have
Shuri
gills.
Explains,
yeah,
which is really interesting. But this movie, again, it's a really good plot. Lots of global, political, socioeconomic themes that are really strong in this film. Lots of great metaphors of themes. But I think the largest theme for sure has got to be grief. And Ryan Coogler, who's easily made one of the most emotional and tragic films of the century with Fruitvale Station. That's one of those movies that you weep after. It's like Manchester by the Sea or $1 Million Baby. It just takes so much out of you. It's emotional, and by the end of it, you are distraught. This movie focused on his talent for tapping into people's grief and to feel trauma and tragedy. And kind of, it was a way for audiences, as well as I'm sure the cast and crew and production, to have some sort of catharsis for the passing of Chadwick, who was, their great leader and great actor. And I think it was kind of a cathartic film for audiences tapping into the grief. And we all were kind of mourning the process and mourning the loss of Chadwick and Black Panther in the film, because, Chadwick meant so much more than just being a character in so many great movies, but he was such an icon. He was the actor of his generation, you can argue, of his age for sure. He was going to go down as one of the greats, and he's just taken too soon. But I really thought it was smart to tap into grief and use that as a main storytelling device for the characters.
And also, if you've seen Fruitvale Station and Creed, Ryan Coogler, especially with Fruitvale, because he shot that on 16mm film, basically all handheld. That entire movie is pretty much all handheld. And Black Panther, there's no handheld cinematography. Creed, there's quite a bit. But that you can see that handheld cinematography is Coogler's favorite, because he finally got to infuse that into a Marvel movie. And Marvel movies, if they have handheld in it, it's for a little bit of time, like a couple of shots at the most. And I think the directors might have to fight for that look. But it looked like Feige in the studio gave him a lot of freedom to go handheld, because I would say there's probably 20 minutes of this runtime is handheld cinematography, which was really nice to see in an MCU movie. We haven't seen handheld, authentic, just raw filmmaking from the studio. I thought that was such a great addition. Yes, there's plenty of Steadicam work in MCU movies and in Coogler's movies especially as well. But the handheld, what it does is it makes you feel, it brings this documentary aspect to the filmmaking, and in a way it makes it feel more realistic and feel like you're really there in some instance. And so when he's trying to connect you with these characters who are going through an emotional crisis, I think handheld cinematography can really benefit that, and I'm glad that he put that into this movie.
Cinematography was done by Autumn Dorald Arkapaw. Great cinematographer. This was her biggest project yet. She did Loki, and she actually is married to another cinematographer as well. Her husband did Macbeth, and the Fassbender one, and The King, the Timothée Chalamet Netflix movie. So great, talented couple of cinematographers, great visionaries. The handheld was so tremendous by Autumn in this film, and opening up with that 2-minute long take handheld shot. I hadn't really felt that in a superhero movie since Man of Steel. These great handheld shots with these larger than life super beings, which was really refreshing, and it really changed my perspective of watching it in terms of it didn't completely feel like an MCU movie, because usually MCU movies, their main goal a lot of the time is just let's have a lot of fun, lots of laughs, cool action. This was again tapping into grief, obviously some one-liners here and there, but I think they did a great job grounding it, making it feel real, making the audience feel the loss of Chadwick as much as the characters are feeling the loss for Black Panther and T'Challa.
Yeah, and one of my main knocks on the MCU of the last 5 or 6 years is with the filmmaking and the cinematography, it can feel very clinical and very just too controlled a lot of the way. And the thing is, the handheld camera work allows for improvisation, and something can happen, and even just focus pulls, like when during the funeral sequence in the opening, the camera people are changing focus from character to character, going from one person's face and then racking focus into the foreground to Shuri. That's really beautiful filmmaking that we never see in these kinds of movies anymore. So I think for artistry wise, this is definitely up there for the last several years in terms of the filmmaking and cinematography.
It seemed like Coogler just wanted to get you in the scenes with the characters. Lots of close-ups as well, lots of grief, wanting us to feel the grief that the characters are feeling. I thought it was really effective.
And then still talking about the filmmaking, I think that this film also still does fall under the problem of heavy CGI and heavy green screen use that MCU movies have just been kind of just going full steam ahead with. I think there's so much green screen even when there doesn't need to be. Like on that bridge when Martin Freeman's character is investigating the crash and the disappearance of those two, that's a green screen background.
Seemed like it.
And they obviously made a concrete set, but it takes me out of it when I see even when they're just in a simple exterior, they're still going green screen.
Or digital screen.
Yeah, or
the
LCD screen. And it's just really apparent at times. And I think that MCU movies, they're relying too heavily on the fake backgrounds and too heavily on digital backgrounds. And so I was hoping for more, but there are plenty of sequences in the filming of this movie that just took me out. Like that scene, I was just looking at the background. It just didn't look real. And so I was taken out of it quite a bit.
I don't completely hate digital backgrounds. It's just that I think some productions do a lot better job hiding it. Like the Batman used a lot of the LCD screen, surprisingly. Pretty much all those beautiful silhouette shots where they're on top of the skyscrapers in the background. Those are all large LCDs, as well as a lot of the motorcycle shots. But the production and the team, they hit it so well. And Greg Fraser did a great job hiding it where it really doesn't look like it, but I think in some MCU movies and projects, it really is apparent that they're not really trying too hard to hide it. It seems like it's good enough for the speed that they need this production to get done. Their TV series are like that too. I think they're just more focused on expediting the process and going as efficient as possible versus really trying to artistically hide that background to make it seem super real.
Yeah, and it seemed like it was the same exact freeway used in No Way Home as well,
similar,
possibly,
but or even the Avengers, the first one.
Yeah, but even the forest during the two funeral sequences, it seemed like that was a set and then they filled in a lot of the gaps between the trees they put there with CGI. So obviously their base camp is in Atlanta. Shout out to our Atlanta friends. And that's where they film the majority of every movie is there. Not all of 100% of a movie is filmed there, but they'll film about 75% of every movie in Atlanta at their huge base camp. But sometimes for me, I can feel that in the movies, and I just it takes me out of a scene.
That's pretty much been our main critiques of the Phase 4 MCU films and projects that have come out this year. I would say, so we had Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, Thor: Love and Thunder, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Was there another MCU movie that came out this year?
No Way Home, I believe, is Phase 4 as well.
Yeah, but I don't count No Way Home as MCU complete. That is more of a Sony production than anything.
No, that's true, yes.
So,
but for Phase 4 films, I think that's it.
So it's just those 3 that came out this year. And plus, this year, No Way Home came out last year at the end of the year. So
Eternals is considered Phase 4.
Okay, but I mean this year.
Okay, this year.
So it's just those 3?
Yeah, just those 3.
So of those 3 films, I would probably say that Wakanda Forever was the best of the 3. But our main critique of all of them has been the CGI and the backgrounds. And obviously, we heard all the stories when Thor: Love and Thunder came out about all these CGI animators being overworked and underappreciated, and which is so unfortunate to hear things like that. I think that this one, though, showed that Ryan Coogler's easily the best director right now working in the MCU, and I
agree.
If I was the MCU, I'd be sure to lock him in for another Black Panther movie at least, if not longer.
He's probably all the directors lately, the last several years, they signed 3-year deals. I mean, three picture deals. Yeah, James Gunn, the guy who made Spider-Man's, I'm sure Coogler did.
John Waters.
Yeah.
John Watts.
Yeah, John Waters is a very different filmmaker.
But I think it's within 10 minutes of this movie, I'm like, Coogler's the best in the MCU right now. He's just really, really well executed this film. He's just a brilliant filmmaker and still so young and has so much going forward in his career. I can't wait to see it. I do hope to see him outside of the MCU with his next project. Maybe he can fit another movie in between this and the next Black Panther film like he did with Creed 1 and Creed 2.
I think that's what he would like to do, but I think the Chadwick's passing, he had to just commit all of his time between these films to try and figure out what to do.
Yeah, because the plot that he wanted to do with Chadwick and Black Panther T'Challa originally for the sequel was going to be T'Challa dealing with the post-blip world of Wakanda and the insurity of the world, and T'Challa going through that, coming back. What was it, 3 to 5 years? 5 years. Everyone was blipped away and T'Challa was gone for 5 years. And I'm sure
I got a baby.
We would. We'll get.
We can get to it now.
I'm sure we would have gotten a lot of what would have happened to Wakanda during T'Challa being away, the king being gone for 5 years, and him coming back. I'm sure changes would have occurred. Maybe there would have been a lot of political turmoil between different tribes trying to take control of the country, which would have been really interesting.
It could have been separated, and then he had to unite them again.
And you can assume that him and Joe Robert Cole had been working on an idea for a year, and then they had to completely scrap the entire thing. And then I don't even think Namor was originally going to be part of Wakanda Forever, but they had to change it up, and then they figured out a way to infuse Namor's story into the modern MCU.
Yeah, I think they did a commendable job because I think Namor ended up being a great antagonist, and he's going to be a future antagonist because by the end of the film, he's still alive. Sure, he spares him, and sure, he had a great conflict of of how to approach being the Black Panther, and then Killmonger. He tries to encourage you, you're just like me. You gotta get business done. You gotta get it done. And I like how he said that. T'Challa was too noble.
Are you gonna take care of business?
Yeah, you gotta take care of business.
But let's get to that in a little bit. But let's do our intermission, then we'll get back to Namor, and we'll do more Killmonger and Shuri becoming Black Panther. The 3 best moments of the film for sure. Now, before we continue, the best way to support Raiders of the Lost podcast is to become a patron at patreon.com/Raiders of the Lost podcast. Get awesome perks like personalized videos, messages, $10, $25, and $100 tier patrons get access to our Discord where we interact with you every day. We have watch parties. We're doing the Sandlot tonight, which should be a lot of fun.
Last week.
We filmed it so November 10th when we filmed this. November 10th, Sandlot. And then $25, $100 tier patrons get their own custom episode. And $100 tier patrons, you're the chosen ones. You also get your own personal watch party. You are an EP at the end of every episode. Main episode, you get a credit, and you get to hear your name as an executive producer. And after 3 months in that tier, you get to come on the show for a fun guest segment. Patreon allows us to do the show full-time, so thank you so much for your support around the world.
Today's episode is sponsored solely by our friends at movieposters.com, the best place to get your posters online. Head on over to movieposters.com and use our promo code Raiders10 to get 10% off your order today. They have a huge selection of pretty much every movie and TV show imaginable in their poster library, as well as all sorts of sizes, framing, and even backlighting for your poster needs. So if you need to deck out your space with movie poster fandom, go to movieposters.com and, of course, use our promo code Raiders10 to get 10% off your order today.
Now, let's head into our intermission, Anthony.
I'm curious if anyone noticed that we skipped a sponsor.
We're no longer sponsored by Manscaped.
Don't even say their name.
Movie quote competition time. I know that it's confusing. It is one thing to question the official story, and another thing entirely to make wild accusations or insinuate that I'm a superhero.
Can you say that again?
All right, sorry, I guess slow down. So,
Yeah.
Movie quote competition time. I know, it's confusing. It is one thing to question the official story, and another thing to entirely make wild accusations or insinuate that I'm a superhero.
Iron Man.
Yeah.
I am Iron Man. He changed. That was so important for what the MCU became.
It's true.
He got rid of the secret identities. He got rid of
Robert
it.
Downey Jr.
Yeah. Okay, here's my quote. Two people talking. Kid, there's something I ought to tell you. I never shot anybody before. One hell of a time to tell me.
Oh, man, what is this? What is this? Say it one more time, please.
Kid, there's something I ought to tell you. I never shot anybody before. One hell of a time to tell me.
I'm blanking.
Butch Cassidy, Sundance Kid.
Ah.
Right in the climax. It's great.
All right. Next up, we have guess this movie release here, Anthony.
Let's hear it.
Boogie Nights.
1997.
Yes, sir.
Easy peasy.
I'm a star.
It's my big. It's my big, Blake.
I'm gonna F whenever I want.
I say we film now. Okay, guess this movie.
How much do you
released.
squat?
The Verdict.
1998.
82. It's actually one of the best courtroom genres. If anyone hasn't seen it with Paul Newman, he's amazing in it. Sidney Lumet made it.
Movie pop quiz time. What movie did Tommy Lee Jones and Don Cheadle star in together?
Tommy Lee Jones and Don Cheadle. U.S. Marshals.
Nah.
Tommy Lee Jones and Don Cheadle. I don't know.
Volcano. Yeah.
I'm trying to think that there's the Pierce Brosnan one. That was called Dante's Peak.
Yeah, this is the Volcano.
The volcano era of Hollywood.
The competing one. It's just
They came out like the 2 years of each
No,
other.
it's what it's always been like.
Yeah.
Ants, A Bug's Life.
Well, I can't remember. I can't picture that one. Okay, here's my quiz question. What did Paul Newman win his Oscar for? Well, he has 2 Oscars. He has an honorary Oscar. I'm not saying that. What did he win his actual Oscar for?
Cool Hand Luke.
The Color of Money.
Ah, god damn it. That's my second guess.
Yeah. Ironically, so the night he got the honorary Oscar for achievement as a career as a whole, he also won Best Actor that night. So he won 2 Oscars that night.
That's cool. For just being awesome.
He is awesome. I love that guy.
Do we have any haters or anything?
Yeah.
Any
Hold on, let me
unsubscribes?
pull him up.
Pull him
Okay.
up.
Okay, so Anthony DeMeo wrote in our TAR clip, best performance you've seen of her career? You're telling me you didn't see her decimate Asgard's army with her CGI fest sword limbs?
Kate Blanchett
In
reference.
Thor Ragnarok? Uncultured to not witness her rise as a villain.
Rise.
Marvel star Kate Blanchett.
In case you missed it, we have a new, in addition to Origins, we're doing Rise movies.
Rise.
Characters who rise up and become villains.
That's it for haters this week.
All right. On this day in film history, today is November 14th. In 1976, Network premieres in Los Angeles and New York City. In 2002, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets is released. In 2006, Casino Royale premieres in London. In 2010, Tangled premieres at the El Capitan Theater. In 2012, iconic The Twilight Saga Breaking Dawn Part 2 is released. In 2016, Moana
I
premieres.
sensed sarcasm in
What?
your voice.
In 2016, Moana premiered in Los Angeles. My streaming recommendation is On the Count of Three on Hulu. It's a really great dark comedy suspense thriller.
My recommendation for tonight is Red Eye on HBO Max. It's a really great thriller from Wes Craven, starring Cillian Murphy and Rachel McAdams.
Now, let's get back into Black Panther. And real quick, I want to talk about Namor and his motivations in this film. So,
What are his motivations?
he wants to keep his civilization secret. And now that there's this new technology, he's always been waiting for the point where the surface world was going to discover his people. And now it has happened. And he basically infiltrates Wakanda. And he basically gives Wakanda an ultimatum. Either you help us attack and destroy the surface world, or we come for you first and destroy you. You cannot beat us. He says they have more soldiers than they have blades of grass in Wakanda, which I'm sure somewhere in the ocean they are, but we didn't really get a glimpse of the massive scale of his civilization, but we can just take him at his word that he has army.
He's like, trust me, bro.
Have an ocean. He probably has an ocean of soldiers, because that's the only way I can think of him like saying that he has more soldiers than blades of grass in Wakanda, and his confidence of being able to take out the surface world. He must have millions and millions and millions and millions and billions of soldiers. Apparently billions of soldiers.
Trillions of soldiers.
I mean, there's a lot of blades of grass in Wakanda.
It's a lot of grass.
Maybe he's just thinking like, this hill right here, I've got more blades of grass.
There's something missing from this film that I was just curious about the entire story. I wanted to see the scientist who stole Riri's plans and used them to create the machine. We never got the scientists or the people who were guilty of that.
It seems like for me, I'm enjoying Riri so far. We've only gotten this glimpse at her in the MCU, but the plot and the motivation for Namor to want to kill her seems a bit off. Rather than just destroying the tech,
Yeah.
why?
Like when Shuri says, "I'll keep her in Wakanda," and she'll never trust me. She'll never build another one.
And then the motivation for a while is like we're gonna kill her, but then it shifts to the ultimatum we're gonna take over the surface world.
Yeah.
I was just a little.
It was inconsistent.
It's a little odd in terms of
Yeah.
just wanting to kill the scientists versus just like destroying the tech.
Yeah, I think for me that threw me off, and it got to the point where I'm not sure if Riri was. I think it might have been better to have her own movie for introducing the character.
I think that would have been cool, because
Yeah.
I was really disappointed that we didn't get more of Riri building the
she
suit.
really didn't get much screen time.
Her screen time was basically just kind of exposition, but and also like a lot of one-liners. Whereas I would have wanted to watch Riri do her Tony Stark montage.
Tony Stark guy.
Stark kid, because she was in Cambridge at MIT kid.
She's wicked smack.
I wanted to see her building her suit, where
Yeah.
we didn't really get that. I thought we were gonna get like even in the
We
trailer.
got one shot.
In the
Yeah.
trailer shows her with the blaster, like doing like the same sequence as Tony Stark, like testing things out. We didn't really get that at all. We just got her suit in her warehouse, and then she's just about to build the suit because they have a week to give Namor an answer, and she has like a week to build the suit. But we didn't really get to see her build the suit. I was a little disappointed.
And for me, it seems like a lot of like the young characters in Marvel movies and shows, they sound like the same personality in a lot of ways, and I feel like the creativity with the writing of the young characters, it's not really there for me. It's like hard to separate one personality from the next. They're all very smart, kind of neurotic, highly charming, and just like make smart quips all the time.
Except I like Peter Parker with Tom Holland.
But I feel like it's still like that.
Quippy.
Like, yeah, it felt like a lot of the young characters they're writing feel the same. You know, does that make sense?
No, I completely agree for
Yeah.
sure. They've all kind of blended into the same kind of
Same
like,
archetype.
same plot line, same kind
It
of.
feels
pieces
like
of
any
dialogue.
one of them can say these lines.
Or
You know
be
what I mean?
or be put into a different movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Because the movies are just like set as like bouncing boards and trampolines for so many different characters. I think that's why.
Yeah, and I think that if she got her own film, I think it would have been a better start for the character because
It would have been awesome.
She was in, I mean, a decent amount of the film, but her runtime was pretty like insignificant, I think, and especially to the plot of the film. I mean, it didn't feel like she was doing much.
I would have preferred an Ironheart movie. She's getting her own TV series, obviously, but I would have preferred an Ironheart movie in like that cool warehouse that she has, building tech, going to MIT. I think that would have been a really great story for sure.
I
They
agree.
just kind of just like, maybe they originally wrote it as a movie, then they just decided to put it in Wakanda Forever to introduce the character. But I still, like I said earlier in the episode, I miss the old days of just solo superhero movies.
Yeah, because her character she didn't need to be in the movie. The movie, it could have been completely the same without Ironheart in it.
Mm-hmm.
It could have just been like this machine was developed by a government to find vibranium, blah 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 blah. And so her character wasn't totally vital to the story. I know they made her the creator of this tech, and so she's being hunted. But I think for the introduction to this character, and the problem with the ensemble approach is she doesn't feel that important when she's just like the 8th most important character in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if she had her own movie and she's the lead and it's her story and it's her from start to finish, I feel like that would be more impactful and give us a better sense for who she is and get excited about her for the future.
I agree, because if Riri Williams Ironheart's going to be a sort of Iron Man-esque character and is going to be that important to the MCU, I would rather her jumping off point and her introduction to the world be a movie.
Yeah.
Give us a full feature length with her, with Riri, versus, like you just said, like almost like 5th to 10th most important character in the plot of this movie. You don't really get a sense of her too much. You don't get to see her really develop. Whereas it's like Iron Man. Would you prefer Iron Man to be the 5th most important character in his first movie? No, you need a solo movie. So it seems like,
because if she
Marvel,
has a movie and then she shows up in an ensemble, you're like, oh yeah, Ironheart's here.
It's kind of odd to me that Marvel, they don't want to like make a movie for like under $200 million, which seems really odd. I feel like they can make a $50 million to an $80 million Ironheart movie and make $400 million easy. It seems like you could do that and just tone it down, the scope and everything. I think that'd be a really interesting movie.
That's actually a really good point. It seems like the film production, they're only going $200 million and nothing less than that.
Versus the TV series.
Yeah. But you can make a really great action movie for $60 million. I mean, just look at the Bourne movies. They were never very large budgets, but they were really big in scope. Excellent action set pieces. Never had huge budgets, but they still seem to this day like some of the biggest, most incredible globe-trotting adventures in that genre. I think that they could make a great movie, like an excellent solo Ironheart movie for $60 million, and it would be a big hit because they're spending less, so they don't need to get $800 million for a box office. They can make $400 million, and it's still just as profitable.
Yeah, it's just not as memorable for an introduction to such an important character to the future of the MCU, in my opinion. I think the best time it's worked was when T'Challa was introduced in Civil War. That's the best example of that. And I understand that that's like kind of like the template of what they're going for now, because that was such a successful introduction. It might be the best introduction in the MCU with T'Challa in Civil War. Like, that was awesome.
Yeah, it was
to
good.
get his reveal. But I think now they do that with every character. And I think sometimes it could be cool to go back to just here's a solo movie of Ironheart. Check it out.
However, I would have liked the Black Panther movie before Civil War. Mm-hmm. I would have. I think that would have been great, though.
Yeah.
So I think it would have been better if they gave him a solo movie first.
I think they're looking at the success of T'Challa's introduction in Civil War as the template. That's what it seems like. And they think like, all right, this is what we do. We got to get them the new character in a movie or a TV series for like 20 minutes, guest spot, then they'll get their own movie versus just like...
But he was very impactful in the conflict of that movie.
Yeah.
Like, he had a lot to do, and he had impact on the plot, whereas in this film, like I said, she didn't really have impact on the plot. She helped out, but like it didn't feel like, I mean, she could have had a lot, like just a great story to open up her character.
They did with Homecoming.
Yeah.
If Homecoming with the Spider-Man...
Yeah, they went with the Homecoming approach.
It's your school. I mean,
yeah.
I think the MIT going to school in Cambridge with Riri Williams would be a cool movie.
Yeah, I guess.
Personally.
But Civil War, I think, is kind of an outlier because it was already such a big ensemble with so many superhero characters in it. It was already like 12 deep, and then Spider-Man showing up, whereas this one is a smaller ensemble. Yeah, I don't know. It didn't feel right.
Yeah. But how about we get to Shuri becoming Black Panther, which was obviously we all were waiting for it the entire film. It's really cool how she was able to create the heart-shaped flower, using the vines from the bracelet she got from Namor as a gift because it was also grown with vibranium, similarly to the way that they grow their flower in Wakanda, even though it's been destroyed. I love the tech of the 3D printer, but it's like a biological 3D printer, which was really cool. That I'd never seen that before because 3D printing is going to be so huge in the world, but like to see a biological
Synthetic.
3D printed, yeah, it's really
Synthetic,
cool.
yeah.
So she's able to create the leaf, and she takes the Black Panther secret
potion.
sauce,
The potion,
secret
yeah.
sauce, and she's going to the ancestral plane, and obviously everyone's like expecting to see T'Challa. She's expecting to see T'Challa,
Or even her mom.
Yeah, exactly. Who she see? Killmonger, Michael B. Jordan, secret cameo, awesome portrayal coming back as Killmonger, and it makes sense. You know, he
He looks like he's enjoying the afterlife.
yeah. He's looking good. But it was a really great dilemma for Shuri to go through where she wanted to see T'Challa, she wanted to see her mother and even her father and see the ancestral plane, but she was stuck with Killmonger. And Killmonger's kind of swaying her to the side of vengeance, and like T'Challa's problem was he was too noble, and your father, he had flaws as well. He wouldn't even go after the man that killed your brother wouldn't go after the man that killed your father. And who are you going to be? Are you going to be too noble like your brother? Or are you going to take care of business like me? And she kind of takes on a similar persona of Killmonger, just going after vengeance once she becomes Black Panther. But then she's able to see, she sees her mother in that final fight against Namor, and her mother tells her to show him who you are. And Shuri stays true to herself and her morals and her ethics and spares Namor at the end of the film.
So I think that this was a great character arc for Shuri, but like I said, I think it would have been better if it took the course of most of the film instead of the last 40 minutes. Like if she experienced the vision with Killmonger and became Black Panther, and she approached her Black Panther missions, or there could have been a big action set piece with the philosophy of revenge and killing. She could have failed, messed up horribly, and then she would have to go on this journey of self-discovery and understand the error of her ways and approach Black Panther in a different way for the finale. I think that would have been stronger if it was longer, if it took place throughout much of the course of the runtime of the film. But they went in the direction of Namor showing his place as civilization, learning more about him. But I think that Shuri's great character arc happened too fast, because it could have been a great thing she was wrestling with for the entire film, of her approach to Black Panther and how being swayed by the bloodlust and by revenge and wanting to like burn everything, like she says when she thinks about T'Challa's death. That could have been a great thing she was wrestling with as Black Panther for half of the runtime.
I agree.
Yeah.
There's so many other great parts of the film. I really like Toloka and Namor taking Shuri there in her little water suit to go see his civilization, and how he uses vibranium to bring the sun to his people underwater, which is really cool. Again, great production design, set design. Post-credit scene was really great. So touching to see Nakia had a son with T'Challa. Prince T'Challa, I'm sure he'll be going to Wakanda soon. It's still, I'm not really sure why. I mean, obviously they're trying to figure it out as they go, but
yeah,
you know, why he didn't grow up in Wakanda. I guess, you know, kind of like Harry Potter, don't want him growing up away from everything and the pressure of the throne.
The mystery thing. I love how he had a kid, but I think I would have preferred if Prince T'Challa was already in Wakanda the whole time.
Yeah.
And then it could have been another thing like they're fighting for the future.
Yeah, but I get they just had to kind of quickly figure something out.
Yeah.
They had to get this movie going, and they had to figure out a good storyline. But I think it seems like they're knocking out two birds with one stone, where they have a current Black Panther with Shuri, and they have a future replacement, a future new T'Challa.
Yeah,
where the character's basically going to be recast and it's T'Challa Jr. basically.
Yeah. But I worry, is it like, did they make that decision because they wanted like a great post-credit scene? Is that the motivation? As opposed to, what if Prince T'Challa and Nakia were in Wakanda for the entire film?
I'm guessing that out of respect, they didn't want to recast T'Challa.
No, not recasting, but having little Prince T'Challa.
No, what I'm saying is this is their solution, to recast T'Challa in time, but to not do it immediately.
Oh, yeah, I agree. But I just think, I don't know, I'm not sure how I felt about waiting until the end, the post-credit scene, to reveal his son.
Gonna have a post-credit scene tomorrow.
No, that's what I'm saying, though. I think I would have liked it if, little T'Challa was growing up in Wakanda from the start of the film.
Yeah. Mystery box.
That's what I'm saying. The mystery box is like getting a little too much sometimes for me.
Yeah, especially
Because then also I feel like it could have been really like a constant reminder of T'Challa, having little T'Challa there.
Yeah, that would have been cool, I think.
Yeah, I think it would have been cool. But I mean, I'm not Ryan Coogler. He's a great guy, so it's his movie.
It's a great movie.
Yeah.
I was honestly, it was better than I thought it would be because I didn't know what the expectations were going to be like going in without Chadwick Boseman being in this film. But I think they really pulled it off. We'll see if it makes a bill. I think it probably will, like the previous one. It'd probably make $1 billion, be the most successful MCU project of the year.
I think it's the best movie of Phase 4, without a doubt.
For sure, best project. Thanks so much for tuning into our review of Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Be sure to become a patron today at patreon.com/Raiders of the Lost Podcast. Take care, everybody.
See you next time.
This episode of Raiders of the Lost Podcast was executive produced by our chosen one patrons, Luke Exelston, Tyler McFly, Darren Singleton, Anthony DeMeo, John Agraz, Becca Keene, Cody Moen, Benjamin Cook, Calvin Cam, and Chandler Johnson. Thank you so much for supporting our show. Raiders of the Lost Podcast is a mirror image production. Sound mixing done by Jacob Kossler. Opening music by Chase Jackson.